You know, every time I tell this story, it reminds me that you can get people to do almost anything. Now, this was a situation that I encountered many years ago. I was in secondary school at the time, and I was in Form 3. And I had a mathematics teacher who was also a form teacher in Form 3. And he said this to us. He said that the first 3 students who get, well, first, second, and third, he said, I will give you all presents. To this day, I remember exactly what he said. He said, you're going to get file paper, pens, eraser, ruler, right? So it wasn't a whole set of different things we were going to get, but at least we were going to get something. Now, I mean, to a secondary school child back then, and probably even now, yeah, you kind of value when people give you things. So here it is. Well, I hope people still value when you get things. But here it is. I read excited. So I'm thinking to myself, I could get a 2. But here the thing. There are 4 girls in the class. I remember it like it was just yesterday. So these 4 girls in Form 3, they were really good. And ever since maybe Form 1, I could recall, first, second, third, fourth. They might switch up who comes first, second, third, and fourth, but it was always like those 4 girls. So I saying to myself, okay, 1 out of the 4 not going to get anything. But then I said to myself, you're accustomed coming in the first 5. I mean, you might come a little under the first 10, but you're not really coming in the first 5. You really feel like you can do this, boy, to make top marks so as to get pens, file paper, eraser, ruler from your form teacher as a present. Now, here why this is so interesting. Before, I consider it impossible when I did not hear any child getting prize for first, second, and third. But when I heard the form teacher said you can get a prize for coming in the first or the top 3, I say, but maybe it's possible. Now, internally, when it came to like studying and so forth, I mean, you're studying, but it really doesn't have a high priority in your mind every single day. Because yes, you're working, but remember in Form 3, so Form 5 is like way into the distant future. So you're not really thinking about the possibility of, well, one day I'll be in Form 5 and I'll have to write my exams and so forth. You're thinking just about the here and now. Remember in Form 3, right? So I'm thinking, okay, I could possibly get a prize. I could get a prize. But in order to get a prize, I had to come in the first top 3, which means one of the 4 girls, well, at least 2 of the girls have to get throughout, right? So, saying, okay, how is this possible, boy? I decided to study. Of course, you're a student, you're in school, that's what you're supposed to do. But you see, there's like 2 types of motivation, right? There's the internal, or what we call the intrinsic motivation, and there's the external motivation. So the external motivation was what was riding high here for me. It was what I could get externally from it. Now, internal motivation has to do with curiosity. It has to do with enjoyment. It has to do with those internal feeling of, well, what you're doing is meaningful and so forth. Of course, external motivation can impact over time your internal state, your internal motivation. But at that time, I'm not thinking about all those different things. I'm thinking about, I just want file paper, pens, eraser, and ruler, and so forth. So I started to study. Now, this is what is interesting, because you don't really get more intelligent over a very short period of time. Now, there's some research that show you could increase intelligence and so forth. You can increase in knowledge, we know that, but there's some things that show you could increase in intelligence too. So I'm not 100% sure what happened there, but I'll tell you what happened. I started to study literature, my mathematics. I started studying my English language, history, geography. I just studying. Now there were things, quite frankly, I didn't really understand, but I memorized it, right? I kind of figure out there are some questions when it is asked, the answers looks like this. So I just memorize it. There's some things that I really understood, and I started to really enjoy learning and enjoy studying and so forth. And probably there's where the internal motivation started to develop. For that entire term, I studied. I do all my homework, and like in my mind, I was thinking, at the end of the term, remember the form teacher said you're gonna get these prize, and I believed him. I believed him because, well, I guess I just believed him, right? So exam came around. End that term, exam came. Now in the midterm, I had an idea how I perform. Wasn't the best, but it wasn't average. It's way above average, right? But it wasn't like 99%, 95%. It was a little lower than that. So exam came, end of term, and I did it. Now some things were easy, some things were really difficult, but I did it, right? And then the results came about. So form teacher, he's in front of the class, and he's calling like the top. It probably had about 20 students in the class. He's calling from the top 10 come down. So calling from 8, 10, 9, 8, and he coming down the road. And then I heard one of the girls' name. Okay. Alright. Right. And then I heard another one of the girls' name. But that's not the top 3. So I realized, I guess at that moment, I'm not too sure what I realized, but I realized like the 2 of them didn't make it into the top 3. Now in my head, 50-50, maybe I make it, but then again, I don't have a track record of making it that high. And then I heard third, and I heard my name, Allick Delancy, right? And at that moment, there's like, excitement, pride, joy, just, I was overcome by that. So I'm all excited and all happy and everything. He calls me up. I collect my pens, my eraser, my file pages. Then I go back and I sit down and I'm looking at my trophies, right? That's what I get. I work for that. And then he called second and first, but I really didn't care too much about that because I already got what I wanted. And it is at that moment, it helped me to recognize that you can motivate people to do remarkable things. You just have to make sure that whatever you're promising to give them is meaningful. Now, to some students, maybe the file pages and so forth wasn't too meaningful, or probably some students really tried, but they just missed the mark. They didn't get exactly the points that they will have wanted. Maybe they really studied. Whether or not they used the correct study technique and so forth, that's another story. But maybe some of them who did not get the prize worked hard. But what it told me is that in spite of the difficulties or the challenges that can come up in a student's life, we can motivate them to do something. It may not be to come first, second, and third, but we probably could motivate them to do much better than they're doing right now. What this also taught me is that people generally have something that we can use to help them to feel connected, to feel joy, to feel happiness, and sometimes it may not necessarily be something tangible. It could be something intangible. It could be we look at their internal states and we motivate them by means of that. We know that they are curious about something. Maybe in school you know your student. If you're a teacher, you know that that student is curious. You know that they find meaning and joy in doing a particular project. Maybe you can expose them to it a little bit more. Possibly you can think about the lessons that you're doing and see if you could incorporate some of the things that that student may find really exciting. Maybe it's hands-on. Probably it's gamification of the subject matter that you're teaching. Possibly it is going outside, maybe walking around in the yard, maybe the school compound, collecting some stuff, or maybe it's just going outside and maybe doing the class in the yard, or doing the class under the shed, or somewhere that is comfortable and safe and so forth. And it doesn't matter what the class is. It could be a mathematics class and you could teach it outside. You could do language reading and so forth. You could probably, instead of having the students sit down in the class, you could have them stand up, you could have them interact, you could have them do different things that will motivate them. So, and of course, just like in my situation, you could promise them something that they will get at the end of the term. We also know too that in order to motivate persons, sometimes you can't think in terms of waiting at the end of the term. You may have to have some small little tokens that they can actually work towards as a build up for what they will get at the end of the term. So it's all about knowing the students who are in front of you. If you are a teacher, if you are a parent, it's about knowing your children. Sometimes it might be that the child is motivated probably to do a specific task. If you say something nice to them, you think about what are the trigger words that can really get them all riled up and excited, and they want to do a task. And it could be any task. It could be to wash the wares, make up their beds, or clean the bathroom, or it could be something like do their schoolwork. Whatever may be a motivating word or phrase or action or activity. Some parents, they may say, okay, if you do this, then you will get that, whatever that is, or whatever this is. So you can have like those external things or internal things that can motivate your children if you're a parent or a guardian. So I just thought, let me share my story with you in regards to how I was able to come third that particular term because of the promise of a gift that my form teacher, who was also my mathematics teacher, offered and promised us. So if you found that this was interesting, please share, like, and probably could comment also, and let me know if there was anything that a teacher or a parent did for you that really motivated you to do really good at a particular task or a subject, or maybe accomplish something in your life. All right, so I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Later.